Hi, Heather.
Hey, how are ya?
Good.
Good. Were you the one that had prom recently?
No, our prom was a couple weeks ago. I think it was Tanner that had
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I don't remember how to share my screen.
There should be like do you have a share icon? Do you
Uh,
have like a strip that pops up that has all the menu options?
there we go. Uh, I just have to get in the right. I think this is the. Nope. Have to find the right. Oh,
Hello.
hello. I just have to find the right window to share here. There, I think I got it.
Yeah.
Everyone, nope.
Debbie yet, right?
Right.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you are.
Okay. Okay. Well, is it recording? I think.
Yep.
Okay. I suppose we should get going because it's only about 45 minutes. Do we want to just go down the list and talk about the college syllabus first?
Sure.
Debbie, do you want to start?
What do you want us to go through for this?
I guess I don't know. I did the orange, so when I looked at it and I reviewed yours, I liked how you explained that when they take the college course or an AP course, it is a more rigorous course than a traditional high school class. I know we have some students that don't think that by being in a concurrent enrollment course, they think that, oh, it's just another math course. We don't have to work twice as hard. And they're in for a little bit of a rude awakening, I think, when they do get to college.
Yeah. And I know Professor Harms, you put in some comments, some suggestions, and I added those in. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm
curious because you do AP. Do you have some students that choose not to do it AP and end up going with college in the schools for the credit?
We actually don't offer this as a dual enrollment yet, so I'm not sure. We're working on that hopefully this coming year or in the fall. It's a money thing, and we had some major budget cuts, so there might be a setback.
Can you offer one course with both options? Like where offer a concurrent enrollment course where they can take an AP test to get the AP and also get the concurrent credit, so it could transfer either way, or is it an or?
I think it's an or, but I know of some, at least from my discussion with individuals, that some have chosen to go with college in the schools because the students didn't want to end up having everything ride on that one test.
Right.
So they were AP and they switched over. And I don't know, Debbie, if that's maybe one of the motivations, or what's your school's approach to?
That's one of the things we're hoping for. We lose several kids each year like PSEO, because the calculus they take, like at Anoka Ramsey, is, at least word on the street, is that it's easier than what we offer at the school. It's less intense. And so we're losing our best kids to what might not be as rigorous of a math course for them in their preparation. So we're trying to get into the dual enrollment. And I understand that some kids may prefer the AP test still.
We saw our numbers come up a little bit after we started offering the concurrent enrollment because it didn't hinge upon the test. But it's one of those that there still are some of those kids that probably shouldn't be there, but we're kind of pushed into it.
Well, I guess I can talk about mine. So my syllabus, I don't currently teach concurrent, and so that's why I'm going through the 18 online courses. And a big push in our school, part of our focus was to try and get some concurrent classes. And so I kind of decided to take on the heavy burden on my shoulders to do it for us. So I am. I decided I probably would go through Southwest Minnesota State because that's who had contacted us and kind of mentioned this 18 online course. And so I went online and I just kind of looked around a little bit and found their actual syllabus template for Math 10, which is college algebra, which is, I'm assuming, what I would be teaching. So then I just kind of tweaked it a little bit, added some stuff. I'm glad to see some of you guys really liked how I had put in the kind of the tentative schedule, because I thought that was really important for kids, because I want to, that's one thing that I feel like I don't maintain enough in my other classes, is sticking to a schedule and really giving an amount of time for kids to work on something. And then, anything later is just something that you have to do on your own. And so I think that's really important. So I added that to it. Other things, pretty much everything else was pretty straightforward. So, yeah.
Just a couple comments. Alex, I would recommend at the top of the prereqs, just indicate that they only have to meet one of those 6. Some students might be confused. Oh, do I have to end up taking the ACT and the SAT to get into this course, or whatever it might be?
Well, it was kind of an eye-opener because I talked to a lot of my kids who had just taken the AccuPlacer for other classes and asked them about their math AccuPlacer, and they were just floored at what I told them they had to get. So that's good. I'm glad that, that we're going to actually have some kids that really have to work hard to get into these classes.
Would you recommend a particular calculator if you were going to teach the college algebra, or what are your thoughts there into technology?
I hadn't really thought about that. What do you use in college?
I know many of our college algebra classes do not allow graphing calculators. They allow scientific, but they want to end up having the students approach that differently than what the calculator allows them to do. So that's just the preference of many of our faculty. It varies quite a bit from one school to the next.
Okay. And something to think about.
What's your personal take on that, Professor Harms? Do you think it's better to have the graphing ones where they can do more exploration, or is it better to just have a scientific one for those earlier college level classes?
And I don't mind including a graphing calculator when I've taught college algebra. I just have to make sure I write the test or give questions that go beyond just that first step of saying, okay, f of x is equal to this function, find f of 2, and they can quickly just trace that function or go to the table. In composition of functions, likewise, they can end up having the calculator do that composition pretty quickly. But I like the ability to have students see what they're working with to get a better big picture of, what are you asking me to find? Well, I want you to find the exact solution, and the calculator won't give you that because it'll be a decimal number terminate. It'll terminate on you. I would like you to find that. You can look for it on the calculator, but you're going to have to step by step show me how you find that solution. That's my preference. So Heather, you also went with the Southwest State.
Yeah, I taught the concurrent college algebra class, that Math 110 this year. It was my first year with them. So it was nice to be able to tweak that syllabus and get it more in line with what I want. So I saw your comments. I'm going to take a look at adding some of those components. I haven't really thought about the calculator thing, but I do really feel after taking this class and after surviving my first year of those high need students that I really do want to do some kind of a study group kind of thing for them. Make them more dependent on each other and get in those kind of good studying habits then and have very set office hours. I'm a very accessible teacher, and I think I need to get them used to me not being quite as accessible. You know, I still want to be accessible. This is the advantage of taking it here instead of waiting until they get to college, that, you know, they know me and I'm more available, but I want to get them closer to being ready for college. So we'll see.
Your philosophy and expectations came across real clear, that you're trying to push some of those responsibilities more to the student, which was nice to see.
Good. I'm glad that came through. I want them to get that.
So I think mine is the next one on there. And we're still like really in the baby stages of this. We have 3 of us from our school that are just starting this for our first year. So we're taking 2 classes right now. This is just our second semester. And so we're really, our school is looking at doing concurrent enrollment just because we're IB and it's an IB test, and the IB test still isn't, it's even accepted at less schools than the AP test is. And so students are headed to PSEO in record numbers just because they want that guaranteed credit. And so they're talking about doing concurrent calculus for our high level IB students, which the class is like 20 kids. So I don't understand why that would happen, but I chose college algebra, and I actually went because we would be doing this through Anoka Ramsey. And I went on the Anoka Ramsey website and looked at their syllabus and kind of mimicked a lot of the things that were on there. And so I'm not sure that I did, because Anoka Ramsey didn't have any classes that were specifically labeled college algebra. They had different labels. So I just sort of went on there and did that. For some reason, I'm not sure why, it doesn't necessarily let me. I think my school maybe has some security things on there that don't let other people access them, even when I put it out there. But I did cut and paste or copy and paste it at the bottom here.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, I saw that when I was snooping earlier.
Yeah, just because, and it didn't format exactly the way that I had done it before, but, you know, I appreciate the commentary, Professor Harms, that I can add some things in there.
I was
I've
curious
never really.
if Anoka Ramsey, Donna, actually lists pre-algebra for a prereq, or what they might be intending for the class that would be required to qualify for college algebra.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yep. So that very first prereq lists pre-algebra, and I'd be curious if that's the course that they want as a requirement before college algebra. I almost think it would be like Algebra 2 or something equivalent to they've finished all of their math requirements, at least for the high school, because I think of pre-algebra more in the middle grade.
So I think that was a pre-algebra college level class, not pre-algebra high school level class. Because this was from the college, so I think it was because the college algebra, from my understanding, is the like basic entry level, and so the pre-algebra would be the prerequisite to that, because it would be the college level class right before college algebra. That's the way I read it from their website. I don't know if that's the case, but I didn't do this for a high school level class. I was kind of mimicking what the college had for theirs, so I'm not sure how that would be. I know that those things, as they come closer, would have to be fixed, I guess, in the syllabus. So, and as far as calculators go, it'd be interesting to see how, because our school uses the TI-83s and TI-84s, and our school has them and our kids use them all the time. And we use them in class with kids. But I've pulled them away from my pre-calc kids actually because of this class. And I tell my students, you can't use them because this class that I'm taking told me that you're going to do better in college level math. You're going to do better at college if I don't let you use a calculator now. So we're not using them. And my students, it was really a struggle for them. But at this point, I mean, we're doing logarithms and they were doing amazing things with them. I mean, I was shocked, like log base 3 of X is equal to 1 over 81. They were able to manage those things without a calculator very easily today. And I was like, wow, that maybe I shouldn't let any of my kids use calculators anymore.
I think it's good to set them aside now and then so that they do keep those number skills.
Right.
And they look at the problem instead of just punching up.
Right.
I took this kind of on a different level. I actually currently teach college algebra through University of Minnesota Crookston. So I just kind of copied and pasted my current syllabus in, and we had went through a lot. I know, like Professor Harms, you mentioned the technology use. We had, when I first started this, we had to address that. We had to address like the office hours and prerequisites and things like that. So it was pretty well laid out. I didn't change much of what I had. So hopefully it kind of fell within the guidelines, but that's kind of what I did is I just put in what I currently do. So.
I think you're preparing for exams was a good statement to the students. Maybe one suggestion is just, these are expectations for students to be successful and doesn't necessarily just limit to studying for exams, because you had some everyday activities like listing questions you have after each class or taking notes or getting together. We're all, I think, in the same approach of what some of your classmates had used as just general expectations.
Right. And I actually put that in after reading through those things about what you should do. I know, I can't remember who did it, but put in the, I think, was it you, Heather, that did the personal philosophy type part? I mean, I really like that you kind of put your own spin on this and you made it really mean something to you so that the kids take stock in it.
Thank you.
To answer your question about the proportion, the final exam, I'm not actually required through Crookston to give a final. Yeah, we're kind of, they want us to cover mainly the topics and how we do our exams as of right now, unless they've changed it. And I'll find out. I have to go in 3 weeks to another workshop on that at the end of the year. But they've kind of let us just kind of do our own thing. They just want like approximately how often we're going to give our exams. They'd really like the exact dates, and I've kind of fought them a little bit, saying with the high school schedule, it's a little difficult because, you know, if it's homecoming week, I might not have my class. If like this year, a lot of you missed 8-9 days, what do we do with our scheduling? So they've been pretty lenient with us so far. I'm sure it's coming down the pipe that we'll have to get a little bit more stringent with it. So. And then as far as the graphing calculator recommended, we as our school have kind of shifted away from the graphing for the simple fact we don't want to supply them for the students. It's a money issue, and most students won't go out and buy them now because they have a $800 or $900 phone that they can access Desmos for free or download some other form of graphing calculator app. And then we started to get Chromebooks in our classrooms, and there's a test mode app for Desmos that you can download, so it locks them out of it. It's like a secure browser, so they could use it on exams or quizzes, and then they can't be Googling anything during that. But
have any of you used the TI app It's like a graphing calculator app that's free for Androids.
I actually have it on my phone. I love it. It's exactly the same as the calculator that they use in class. I pull up my phone when I'm with the students sometimes. I'm like, oh, and they're like, wow. And I'm like, you can get that. But it takes up too much space, so they can't get as many photos on their phone.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
If they have the app, it takes up too much space for them.
Is that Wabbit MU or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty slick for those kids that don't want to buy one but want to be able to use it at home.
Right.
I feel like it's a nice option, and then they kind of get some practice with using them if you allow them to use them in class, but.
And I have a few, just one, like we used to have classroom sets, and throughout the years they've slowly started dying, and we just haven't replaced them. So I probably have 10 or 15 that I just keep in my classroom, and they're welcome to use them at any time. Computation, they're fine, but they've really kind of dove into if they want to do graphing or graphical analysis, they will just go to Desmos, and it's so much quicker and it's a nicer graph. But did we get everybody as far as their syllabi?
Yeah, it's just some general comments. Alex, I know you had put down a calendar, and I think that's a great way to frame things out. Many of you had identified using websites, and that's what I choose to do in terms of listing when those dates are due, but I always put a disclaimer somewhere in the syllabus saying dates are subject to change. It will be announced in class and on the website, but this is the tentative schedule for the semester. So if you do have snow days or other things, you're not saying this is it, do or die, but it's what we plan to do, and it gives you and the students kind of a general path down the course.
Debbie, do you want to discuss the difference between statistical and mathematical goals?
Yeah, I enjoyed reading this article. It helped me clarify things that I had been thinking about but couldn't quite figure out. I think most of our students come to us with, some mathematical goals and thinking where it's kind of big picture and you're looking at digging deeper into a problem, whereas in statistics, you're just given a bunch of numbers, and the focus is on how do I want to look at my numbers. Do I just want the mean and the standard deviation? Do I want to run a t-test? What do I want to do with these? And a thing I run into with my students who are taking like an AP stats and stuff is, well, what's the answer? And I said, well, that's close enough, because in calculus, it's you get your answer 3 decimal places, unless it's dollars and cents, and you can be off by 1 digit in the last decimal place. And then you get to statistics, and it's like, well, yeah, it rounds the same. You're fine, and that's kind of hard for them sometimes. To work with until you get the idea of the alpha level and what's going on. I think for me anyways, it was harder to switch to the statistical kind of thinking and the goals because it's so open-ended. Whereas if we say graph, this function f of x equals whatever, then it's kind of within parameters what we do. And stats has parameters, but it's like, okay, use this data, make a recommendation with it. Is it a test? Is it just you're gathering information for somebody? It's, I think, much more easy to be real world based in statistics than in mathematical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I currently teach a Providence Stats class, and the way that our classes are set up is it's basically you either take like the Providence Stats route or you take the pre-calc route. And so a lot of my Providence Stats kids are not the nicest way to say it, but not the brightest bulbs in the light. So, and I was always struggling with this because the textbook that we've had for the longest time, the curriculum that we've had is very deep and very college level. And so my kids have no idea what's going on. So I've had to basically water it down enough so that they can be successful in it. Well, now reading this, I realized that watering it down was exactly what I was supposed to do. And the fact that like, we really have to just look at the numbers, analyze them, and kind of, come up with some sort of, what do they symbolize or what do they mean? And so we do a lot of talking about numbers, and my kids don't like that because they think they need to get an answer, and then we move on. But really it's, let's find an answer, let's talk about it, and let's see if it's reasonable or not. Why did we get this? What does it mean? What does it look like? And so, like Debbie was saying, it's very different thinking. And so, and for the longest time, I thought of it as a math thing, and I would get so frustrated because like, even when I was taking my own, already pre-made tests, and I would try and, help my kids with them, all of a sudden I was getting the wrong answer because I was thinking too like rigid with it. And so it was really good, and it opened up a lot of conversation with my kids, just about, numbers and what do they symbolize and what do they mean and how are they different and what can they tell you. And so I really liked this article. I really thought it was really cool. And I was so thankful that we got to read it, because now I feel a lot better about teaching my Providence Stats classes the way that I do.
Good.
I'm probably like on the flip side, because I feel like I try to focus a lot on the critical thinking and the analyzing and the logic component of all the math I teach. So I felt like I'm more parallel almost to the things that they pulled out of Providence Stats, where I was like, I don't really see much difference, but maybe that's just more my style. I'm not sure.
Heather, you're not alone. Some of your classmates in other groups said, I try to teach math like it's a statistics course, in terms of having them always explain why, or having them go through and look carefully at multiple ways that they can come up with solutions. But I think math, oftentimes we say that there is that one answer and you can come up with it in a variety of ways. And, at statistics, there's many different conclusions, because they have that saying that you can always lie with statistics. And you have to look carefully at being critical of, well, how did they end up justifying this result?
Sure.
What's the sample size? How did they phrase it?
True. Some of it depends on how you phrase the questions too, right? I mean, even in algebra, if you're not asking for what is X, but you're asking for what kinds of X values do this, or what, how does this impact graphs or whatever, then they can be more open-ended and more than one right answer can exist still, because you're looking more for an explanation or a thought or an idea. But yeah, I get that.
That's a good point.
Donna?
Yeah, so I guess when I was looking at it, I was looking at it also in the sort of difference between statistics and math, and or in like the traditional math route. I don't teach statistics, nor do I. The only pieces of statistics I teach are the chapter that we teach in Algebra 2, which actually consists of mean, median, and mode, but why do we use them rather than what they are, and then different statistical plots. But we do like literally box plots, normal curves, histograms, percentiles, that's about it. So we don't get really very deep into, we don't do chi-squared testing, we don't do any of that kind of stuff in our Algebra 2 class. So for me, as I'm like with my experience with statistics and teaching statistics, I think about it, I tell my students that like understanding statistics is what's going to help them be a good consumer. And so they need to be able to look at all the data that's sort of bombarding them all of the time. Whereas I feel like math is the traditional mathematical thinking is a little bit different than coming up with like looking at all the data and coming up with a conclusion from the data and trying to decide, looking at, so what does this plot look like, or what does that plot look like? What's better for you? What is this telling you? What's that telling you? And kind of looking at it as from the consumer aspect of it, I guess, is sort of, what is this really telling me from the data that you get? But like I say, I haven't taught statistics in a very detailed fashion as far as that goes. It's a chapter in Algebra 2.
I think your wish may come true, because I understand that starting to revise the Minnesota math standards. And
Right.
one of the changes will be more statistical concepts.
Well, and I think like Alex's school, a lot of schools now are going towards, we're starting to go towards like either you go the pre-calc route or you go the statistics route. Like it's kind of a more statistical based if you're not going the traditional pre-calc route.
Yeah, this was the first time that I'd actually seen it in our school when I first taught there. But in a previous school that I taught in, it was almost like the AP statistics course was the highest one that they offered. So it was like after you had done pre-calc or even calc, then you could take an AP statistics course. Kind of interesting.
I kind of looked at it as how they described that students should be questioning. Like we said, the open-ended questioning, like what happens if we change this variable? How does it affect things? You know, like kind of going back to, well, if you take out the outlier of a data, how does that affect the mode or the mean and the median? And just the posing open-ended questions and asking them to, well, here's the answer, describe how you would have gotten to this. You know, giving them the opportunity to not just follow one certain path, but to kind of go on their own and hopefully take off from there. So that's what I looked at, was mainly the questioning techniques and the fact that you kind of have to look at what are you looking for your answer before you ask the question. Any other thoughts, comments on any of that for anybody?
I think some of you brought up a good point that one of the things with statistics is that you want students to be more critical of what's being interpreted and how it's being relayed. And in math, we don't always bring that critical, are you sure you've got the right answer? We say check your answer, but I think you have to do a lot more than just checking answers when you're working with statistical conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough with students who just want the answer key, right? I did this paper, can I have the answer key?
Yeah, that's always the race, isn't it? Well, I'm done. Can I check my answers? But how did the Edfinity go for everybody?
It was good. Was I understanding the webinar or whatever correctly, that they're going to start charging students for usage unless you qualify as a rural district?
Yes.
So I was just getting attached to it, and now I feel like you ripped out a piece of my heart. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. But
Well, I am a rural
right now,
district. I get to use it.
Alex is a lucky one.
Yeah, I am. I
Chad
actually,
should be too, way up north.
Oh yes, we're rural, so.
not to jump ship here, but I guess I can go first then, because I can
Okay.
talk about, because I have to honestly admit I had kind of a change of heart, because last week when we did this, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to use this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to use it. I didn't like the coding, whatever. But just the other day, I needed to put an assignment together for my pre-calc kids on matrices, and I had no real resources before about matrices. And so I looked at Edfinity, and by golly, there was a bunch of questions on matrices. And so I gave it to my pre-calc kids, and they loved it. They absolutely just thought it was awesome. They ate it up. I said, look, you're all doing the same problem, but there's different numbers. And so I don't have a problem with you working with each other because you're not copying. And they thought it was great. And so then when I got to go through and look through, how they scored and how many tries they took and different things like that, I thought it was really good. And so like I said, I have to kind of say that I did have a change of heart with it. And after the webinar, watching that and really learning so much more about what I could do with it, I think really helped too. So I was glad that I watched that. And yeah, so it was good. Like I said, I really liked it. You know, I still wish that I could write my own problems. I still wish, you know, a couple things, but like I said, I'm glad to hear that in it they're working on that, and that they want to make that available to us. So that was good.
Who wants to go next?
I will. I guess I was originally feeling like it was going to be pretty cumbersome to score or to handle anything like that until I started monkeying around and finding other tabs and seeing ways where they kind of charted things out better in better formats where you could kind of just get a visual and copy the data into your grade book or whatever. So I was getting really excited, and I thought that the features were really nice. I can tell he said the thing about it being a cost coming up, and also the part about not being able to really write your own questions. I still thought I might think about using it, but the cost is going to be a bummer for us.
Like Alex said, I think my opinion changed as well. And maybe with any software, the deeper you dig into it, the more I understand what's going on. And so then it's, you know, I prefer it more. I wish that we could see like a breakdown of the questions, like questions 1 through 10, and you know, what percent of kids got each one right. More like something, I don't know that we all use any of the same online grading packages, but it would be nice to know the percent of each of the whole class, which questions were answered, and then to know student by student which questions they missed without having to go into their individual test and look at that. But other than that, I really like the idea of it being interactive with different numbers. Like you were saying, because it just gives us more reasons to work with our partners. And I think the more we can talk about math, the more we're going to learn. My big holdback, I guess, that I don't like about online work is I see kids who come to me and they've done so many like IXL problems or things, and it's, you know, I'm going to grab my calculator and I'm just going to punch the numbers that I see until I get a reasonable answer. And then even when I get it right, I don't really know how I got it because I was just punching numbers on my calculator because nothing was written down and comprehended. But that's just, I think, a management issue in the classroom rather than a technology thing. It's just a temptation that I can't let my students fall to.
Heather, you had mentioned you found a summary screen so that you could see some of the question by question, or what did you find most beneficial?
I was trying to remember what and all I found because I kept feeling like I had to click on everything, and then I found something, and I guess I'd have to get in there and look again, where it like kind of charted out every student in the class and every assignment and their scores for all of them. And I thought that was really useful. And I thought that there was maybe a question percentage breakdown, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong. I can mess around. If I find it in there again, I can send you a message maybe.
There was one, and I think it was you had to go to the assignment itself, into the assignment, and then it did do a breakdown, and it said the percentage correct. But I don't have it in front of me either to really, you know, click by click tell you what to do.
Yeah, thank you. I will look into that more.
Yeah, so for me, I can say technology is really not my strong suit. In fact, it's my IGP this year, and I think it's going to be my IGP till I retire. Really. And the more sort of cumbersome things get, the more difficult it gets for me. I did find a lot of good things with it. I wouldn't actually be able to like implement with my students until next year when I could spend some time over the summer really digging into looking at it and things like that. And I think just like any program, it's like once you get it to the students is when you really sort of understand how it works, and when the students then, like when you see what they do and what they do wrong. And I didn't have the opportunity to actually do that, to be able to get a large amount of data, to be able to go in and look at that. I do want to try it next year, although if it's going to cost something, we're definitely not a rural district. And our district, just like every other, is really attempting to cut, right, everything, because that's where we're all at in education right now, I think.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I like the idea of it. I just wish I had an unlimited amount of time to set these up to be more, more for my classes. I like the idea of giving them the ability to possibly take it, you know, say 2-3 times, or an unlimited amount of time if you really want them to get the right answer. And we had talked about this before, is, you know, I could see some students having difficulty with entering in their answers, you know, having to use set notation. But if you had the ability to review that with them, it would be okay. And then I agree with you guys about having to go click question by question or student by student to see it. It would have been a little bit, you know, a little bit better, but that's just kind of the way things were going. And maybe eventually it'll get better or be more streamlined, but.
I had a question, and maybe Professor Harms, you'd be the best one for it, but up on the top, it says to check out the supervision. What would that be used for exactly?
It gives you some extra options in terms of how the program's set up for students, what they can see. So settings in terms of a template type of arrangement. And I know that some of your different classmates had set it up so that when you clicked on the assignment, it would give you, the student, a view of saying, here are the directions. So it would come in with step 1, or instead of just jumping to the first problem, it might say, you have X number of attempts.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to look into that one a little bit more. I saw all the different basic different links for it, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was for. So
Edfinity is one right now that the National Science Foundation is helping keep the costs free, but there are other free ones out there, and I'll try to put those links and I'll send them out to you, and then also post it in D2L. So if you're interested in, well, our school can't afford it, what are some other options? Personally, I found Edfinity at this point to be one of the better online. Pearson does a lot with their books. So more and more college students are buying electronic access to books, because instead of paying $250 for a calc book, they might be able to buy it, access to that whole book for $100, plus it includes their online problem set that instructors would then put in assignments for given us problem sets, and students use their access code that they purchased with that electronic book.
yeah. And that's My Math Lab, that's Pearson, isn't it?
Right. And Cagney also has their own version that comes with their book, and some of your classmates are using that with their College in the Schools, and they found that to be a good resource. But like everything, you know, it has certain better applications and others not so good. Matrices, it works great for online problem sets that provide all of the setup, or 3D graphics for a calc that allow the students to see cross sections. But other problems, like you described, you want students to work it step by step and show you what they attempted instead of just the answer. And different approaches that people have used, they've had students take photos of their work and then submit that as part of their submission for the assignment. So in addition to what they get for an overall Edfinity type report, they would also have some screenshots or photos of how the students approached it, as a way of encouraging them to put paper to pencil.
Mm-hmm. Anything else we need to discuss? I'm not sure if we're still limited to the 45 minutes or.
I have one question just about curriculum in general. We are, in my district, probably 2 years out of starting the math, what we've traditionally called textbook adoption. And we're thinking of not going with textbooks because there's so much available online. And I'm wondering what you guys are using. Are you using like purchased curriculum and pretty much sticking to that? Or are you kind of developing things and the curriculum purchased by your district was just now kind of supplemental rather than the main focus?
We just adopted new math curriculum 6 through 12 this year. And we went with something called CPM, College Preparatory Math. It really isn't just for college. It's been around, I think, for about 15 years or more. And they have an online version of all their texts. And in a couple of our classes, we purchased student textbooks, but we purchase paperbacks, and as they get kind of wore out, we might just keep the online version and just have a couple in-house, if students don't want to read. For us, it's just, students have access to it on their phone. All they need is we send them a link through their school email so they can access the text online. Some like it, some don't. It's just a change for them right now. So.
Yeah, my text is actually more of like a supplemental thing now. I've been doing the same curriculum for 5 years now at this point. So everything that I have, it's all from what I've found and what I've, manipulated myself using the curriculum as kind of a starting block. And so, when it comes time for our new curriculum review, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do, but probably move more towards online because we do have an online version of the thing. And, me, myself, I don't really pay for it. So I just basically use the free version of it for my kids too if they want it. But so we'll look into that when the time comes.
Our school is also going through sort of a curriculum adoption nightmare right now as well. So, but it's IB stuff. So it's a little bit different. So we have laid out all of the Minnesota State standards. And then what we did was we went to curriculum that included all the Minnesota State standards in the sequence that we wanted that to be. But we're required to do every single class has to do common assessments. We have to, our practice assessments and our final assessments, everything has to be common. And so we are somewhat tied to the curriculum, but we work together as teachers then to go through and do other stuff. And we have online textbooks, but they're just, it's not interactive in any way, shape, or form. It's just that they can go in and look at the textbook online. So I don't know, we're looking at adopting new books.
Have you narrowed in on any, Donna?
So since we're IB has 2 options. So we're pretty much limited to those 2 options. And the difference is 4 pages out of each. They're pretty much 2 books that are pretty well the same. So, but fortunately we have a really good, our math department, we all think very differently and we all approach problems very differently, but we work really well together. So our students really kind of get the best of both worlds because we are constantly sending stuff back and forth to each other and then questioning each other. Why are you asking this? How is this supposed to, what did you really want for the answer of that? Or, those kinds of things so that we're looking at it from multiple perspectives. So at least that's fair.
I thought you might do a lot of talking already, so that's why I put you in different groups.
We do actually do a lot of talking together.
Do you have a lot of colleagues, Donna, that are also in this program, or?
So there are 5.5 of us in the math department and 3 of us are taking these courses together.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're all fortunately taking all the same classes. We've been in all the same classes so far.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be really nice for combinatorics and statistics. Looking for some help on those for sure.
Have you taken Galois theory yet? Abstract algebra?
No, we took proportional reasoning, and then we took this one in the problem solving one this spring. So we have to take the other 3. I don't know what's offered next spring. But we're doing combinatorics in the summer and then statistics in the fall.
Statistics for me was tough. I'm glad I did it in the summer, just because of the amount of time it took to do the problems well. It compared to my undergrad statistics course, this was 100 times better. For me to understand it, but it was just, as far as the amount of workload, it took me a while.
That's good to know. I'm a little nervous about that because I'm also going to teach the first year of our calc classes. Our calc class is a 2-year IB thing, and I'm taking on the first year of it this year.
Okay.
Coming up. So that'll be good. It'll be a challenge along with statistics.
Anybody
It was
else?
nice to have you all in class.
Been a good class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I liked the fact that there are a lot of things that I could like read about or learn about, and the next day in class I could immediately make a change and immediately affect my students, like the day after I read it, kind of a thing, or the day after we've had a Zoom meeting, or the day after I've gotten an email. It was immediately applicable to what I was. I've appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, same here.
I never want to say you have to, because I know people are at different points, but I hope that you've been able to take some ideas and use it, whether it be this year or next year, to make your teaching that much better.
Yes, and thank you for the time
I'll
you
have
put in finding all these good resources for us.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is one of the classes that the system office says it's too much pedagogy, so they want to end up pulling it out of the 18 online rotation.
Oh,
Really?
Well, good thing you took it now.
Right.
And
I
we
found-
got a, oh, go ahead.
No, I found it very useful. I mean, like I said, immediately I could read something and go to my next day's assignment and go, oh, I need to change this, or I need to look at this differently, or I need to ask these questions, or, you know, whatever was something that I could turn around and do right away.
We received an email from the professor who's teaching the proportionality class this summer, and it's been completely redone. You know, so I'm reading it and they're like, oh, then you need this Calc 2 stuff and some physics stuff. I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. It's going to be exciting. I'm a little scared, but are they having to revamp anything that is a pedagogy class?
Yes. Unfortunately. So even my technology course has to end up being revamped.
So is that going to be offered again? Because I'm not sure that I saw it on the schedule.
My plan is to hopefully offer it next spring,
Okay.
but it has to first be reapproved.
That's one I'm looking forward to because technology is so hard for me and I know I need to be better at it. That was one that I'm really looking forward to taking.
I enjoyed that class when I took it.
Me too.
There's always so much out there that's changing with technology, so it's nice just to say, here's what's up and here's some things that your classmates might be using. So I hope to have it again, but they're being stinkers.
They should know never ruin a good thing.
Right.
I think it's tough. I understand they want it to be more math rigorous, and I appreciate that, but the pedagogy that's tied to math is what's the most useful, I feel like, and practical.
Well, and especially with this class where we talked about, you know, growth mindset versus, you know, fixed mindset. I mean, I think that's something we're all facing, whether it's in math, science, English. And it is part of, I think it's very important to the curriculum, whether, you know, it is a math rigorous course or not, but.
It definitely impacts how you teach, and everyone can end up getting information, but it's not until you put it into practice that really the students are going to take advantage and learn in the approach that you choose to end up giving it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a good group, guys.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yep.
All the good stuff.
Right.
Well, have a good rest of the year, everybody. Hope you survive.
You too.
Days.
I've got 10 days left with kids, so.
Oh, a
Wow.
little jealous.
Yeah, we'll see if they survive. And then you want this uploaded again, Professor Harms?
Yep.
Same way as before?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Have a good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Night.